Right, so this morning, just quick recap of what we did yesterday. So we introduced just two new components. We had our labels and we had our edit boxes. Labels were there just to give the user some guidance. I use these ones on the bottom left as an example. Those names there, we don't actually change anything on that side. We'll change the values on this side, but these ones just give us an idea of what this is for. And that's the same, that's this. So these labels just gives us an idea of why these edit boxes are there. But we won't actually interact with them. So they are just labels. We don't use them. We don't use them in code either. So that's why we don't worry too much about changing their names. Um, you can later in projects, we can interact with it though. It's not that we can't. It's just the user can't interact. But we can later if we wanted to sort of customize what gets displayed there. That we can do. And if you decide to do that at that stage, then we'll change the component name. Remember I said all the components names we change is just because we use it in code. So we want to, whenever we want to interact with a component, we want to use a proper name. Not just that default name of JButton1, JButton2, and JEdit and all that stuff, or T-edits and T-buttons. We want to give it proper names. So for us, our labels, we're not going to interact with them, so we don't mind about them. For us, our edit boxes is what we're going to use with the user. So last time I showed you the show message where it popped up and we can see a pop-up option of giving us an answer. So this is another way that we can tell the user something, and that's with the edit box. And it's also a way we can ask the user to type in values for us, also with the edit box. So with them, yes, ask me. Okay, so I think what you most probably did, you just opened it wrong. So just go File, say Close All. Did you just open it this morning? Okay, say no. Yeah, if you didn't make any changes yet, say no. Maybe something went wrong somewhere, and then we don't want to save a mistake. So just say no, and then you'll go Open Project. Don't choose Open. Choose the Open Project one. Okay. Yes, you can choose either one. Doesn't matter which one. uh, so it sounds like when you saved it, you maybe didn't save it all in the right spot. So remember this, the saving is very tricky. That's why I spent like that first bit so much time on it. Uh, when we start a new one, let me close this one. So if we go File and we say New and we choose our VCL Forms application, you must, your first step must be to click the Save All button. And then it's going to ask you where to save. We should never go by the file and then the Save As. Save As sort of just breaks it. It splits your files. And it sounds like that's what happened to yours. Your project and your unit file was split into different places. And when that happens, it actually, yeah, everything will be more difficult. Um, Tell me quickly, do you still see your welcome page? Yes, like a tab on top here that says welcome page with a house. And then do you have recently opened projects there? Yeah, recently, yeah. Can should Hmm. And if you choose the second one, how many of them do you have there? Yes, yes. So do you only have one calculator one? Bless you. Bless you. Hmm. All right. So I'm not sure what happened. I think you most probably saved it incorrectly. So the the best alternative that I want to say, what I did this morning on Google Classroom, I did create a resource for you inside Practical called Calculator. Inside there, I did put my program, this calculator zip. So if you want to download that one, then you can just maybe open mine. It, it could help with yours. Yeah, we'll have to see. I think the saving steps was maybe done not 100% right. So maybe for those of you that wants to download mine, how it works, you'll go to the assignment or the notes, you'll click on the calculator zip, then it will open a screen like this for you. And then at this stage, you can't do anything yet. So you go top right by the three dots, more actions, and then you say open in a new window. So yeah, it's not that straightforward. So if all of you can just take nicely note of this, this is how you would, whenever I send you programs, that's sort of where we'll get to. Initially, now we're creating programs to get used to them, but later on, I will give you all the screens already created, and then you just do the code part. So to do that, you'll open it. It will open in a new page like this. Then you go on the three dots on the right hand, top right, and you choose open in a new window. Open in new window. You click on that one. Then when it's here, then you'll see there's a download button that you can download. The only trick with this one is you are downloading a compressed file. It's a zip. So when you download it, let me download it as well. So you click download, and then it will show you where do you want to save it. For mine, I'm going to put it on my desktop. So I click save, and then it's saved on the desktop. So what you'll do then, you'll just go to your desktop, and you should see the calculator file there. There. Okay, mine looks like a suitcase because I've got an app installed WinRAR. Yours might just look like a folder with a zip on. All right. And then on this one, what you have to do is you just have to right click on it and then say extract all. And then it's going to ask you where. Put it in a folder called calculators. You can just leave as is. Then you say extract. And then it will create a folder for you called calculator. Once you've got this folder called calculator, you can then go to your Delphi and then choose file open project, and then you can go to the desktop into calculator, choose any of the two projects, and it should work fine. Yeah, I will delete it because it got corrupted somehow. Right, but now we are busy with this one. All right, so labels just there to give information, edit boxes to interact with the user. Our buttons are there so that the user can click it so that something happens. So he can activate code. That's the idea behind buttons. You can do it with other components as well, but it's sort of like, even in coding, there are normally lots of ways to do things, but they are like, I want to say the right way of doing it, like the purpose. The purpose of buttons are to be clicked, and edit boxes are to display and input data. You can use labels to also display. You can use edit boxes to be clicked, but it's, yeah, not the purpose of it. So I would suggest that we stick sort of to the purposes. Our edit boxes, because we're using them in code, we wanted to give them names. So the names we gave to the edit box was EDT, and then number 1, and the EDT number 2, and the EDT answer. Always make sure you select the right component. Sometimes people mistakenly misclick it, and then they click on the whole form. And then when they change the name, they'll change actually the form's name and not the components, and then everything gets confused. Same with our buttons. We also want to change their names because we're going to use it in code. So our button's name is btn add, btn subtract, btn multiply, btn divide. Then remember the way that we see these things, our labels, we use the caption to change what the user sees. Our buttons, we use caption to change what the user sees. And with our edit boxes, we use the text property. Text is the thing that the user sees and the one that we use to interact with. So if we display, we'll use text. If we want to get values from there, we'll use text. So text is the property that we use with edit boxes to get stuff out and in. All right, then our multiply button, I'm just going to go to that one quick. So I showed you last time that we create variables. We've got 5 different types of variables. The first one is an integer. So I want to ask from some of you, what is an integer for again? Yes. And then what other data type do we have that's for real numbers or numbers with fractions? Let's see, Milani, do you have an idea for us? What data type do we use for real numbers or numbers with fractions? Or anyone else? Yes, thank you. So double is the one we use for that. Then which one do we use for words or anything else? Who can help me with that? Yes, well done. All right, so I'm just going to stick with those 3 because that's our most common ones. So what we did with our multiply button, we created 3 integer variables, one for each of the numbers we're going to get, and then we wanted to add them together, and then one for the answer when those 2 are added, where we can put the answer into. So we create the variables. Variables are like containers where we're going to put the values into that we can use them. So the first number we got out of edit box number 1, and then we remember that we use the .text, the text property, to extract it from that component. So that gives us the value that the user typed in this block. But now problem is, most of the time, most components and most stuff we use to actually get values from users, they are actually used as strings so that it's not easily to get errors. So a string, because a string can take numbers and words. So the whole idea of coding, and you'll see when we get to like grade 12 and we do our big grade 12 project, The idea is to cater for, I want to say, stupid users. So you want, if you ask somebody for like his age, most people know you'll type in like, let's say you're 10, you'll type in a 1 and a 0. But then you never know. You might just get that odd user that will type in TEN, the word 10. And now if we immediately put that into an integer, we actually get an error. So the way that Delphi and most programming languages are created is to sort of anticipate for users not being the sharpest pencils. So they want us to sort of anticipate and protect our users from just a program crashing down. So for that reason, our edit boxes always also gives us a text. But now with numbers, we don't want the text, because if we had two strings of type text, let's say we've got a 1 and a 2 and we add them together and both of them are strings, what will our answer be if I add a 1 and a 2 that are strings? Who can take a guess? If I add a 1 and a 2, if both of them are strings, what will my answer be? What do you think? Nia, do you have an idea for? Oh, yes, Melanie, tell me. Yes, well done. So, because the 1 and 2, because they're just seen as words, theoretically, and we add them, they just put them next to each other. So, a 1 and a 2 becomes a 1, 2, which is 12. So, we don't want these ones to be strings. So, what we do is we've got this thing that will make a string into an integer. So str to int, that is our conversion. That will convert a string into an integer. And then, so we tell it, here's a string, make it an integer for me, and then put it in here for me. And then we get another string, and we say, okay, make it an integer for me, and then put it in there for me. So there we got now two integers. Now the integers. Now we can do our calculation. For the multiply button, we'll say we'll take our number 1 and we'll multiply it with number 2, and then the answer is placed into that variable. And then we just display the answer. So, but now we've got the same. So we want to put the answer into this edit box in the text property. That means it needs to be string. But our answer is an integer. So because answer is integer, but we wanted a string, we need to now change our integer into a string. So, all right, we'll have a look now, Milani. Milani, tell me, does it give an error like something with lines already open or something like that? Yeah. Is it, and you've waited for a long time now? All right. Okay, I'll help you now with that. All right, but up until this stage, everybody good with the code we've done? I want to quickly do the delete and then show you something so that we can do maybe some more buttons and then we'll go from there. All right, so with our divide, I mean the divide, not delete, divide. So as I told you, the problem with divide is, okay, let's not see the problems yet. So with divide, do you agree we need these variables again? We need two variables for the numbers that we want to divide with each other, and then one for the answer. So we can go and create a variable for num1, we can make it an integer for now. Num2, we can make it an integer. And then our answer, that we also want an integer. Fantastic. All right. All right, so Javes, we're just carrying on with our program yesterday. You sort of just missed the recap. So I recapped everything we did yesterday, and we're literally starting with the divide button now. So you didn't miss anything new yet, but everything is recorded as well. So if you want to just go and look at that first 20 minutes. All right, so what we do is we created our three variables again, two for the numbers and one for the answer. And then, so you'll open Delphi, and then on the welcome page, you can just choose like what the top one there. It should open the right one for you, theoretically. All right, then we need to get the numbers again. So we do our num1 must get the value from our edit box num1, but the text property. But now with this, remember again, that's a string. So we need to change our string to an integer. Erase that part. All right. So there we've got the first number, then we have to get the second number. Also, it will be a string. We want to change it to an integer. We're going to get it out of our edit box number 2, the text property. So that's step 1, get the 2. Now what we want to do is our answer must now be the number 1, but then divided by number 2. So we do that. And then we just want to display the answer. Do you agree? So that we get the two numbers, we divide them, and then in my edit box answer, I want to put the text, but I want to change the integer to a string of my answer. Okay, let's see what happens. Now we get some errors. And now we look in the what. If we read at the bottom, they say incompatible types, integer and extended. Now extended is basically double. So it's telling us when you divide these two things, most of the time when we divide two numbers, you're not going to get a whole number. You're not going to get an integer answer. Most of the time it will be a fraction. So as I told you with our edit boxes, remember we said they made it string so that you can sort of cover for not so very sharp people. So divide's the same thing. They don't want us to divide two integers and say the answer will be integer, because most of the time it won't be. So what did we say at the start of today's lesson? If the answer is not going to be an integer because there might be fractions, what data type should we make it? Yes, so we'll make it a double. So we can leave the number 1, number 2 integers because extracting them as integers, that's fine. But once we start dividing, the answer will most probably need to be a double. So you'll see if you play it now the problem's not there anymore. Now it's just here at the bottom. Now we see they say there is no overloaded version of into string. Now remember, answer is not an integer anymore. Answer is a double. Now unfortunately there's not a double to string. Double to string would have just made our life so much easier. But what they use for doubles is a float. Float to string. Now float is also actually another data type. So you'll see this one we could have called float as well. No, we couldn't. Yes. So it's a double, but then when we convert, we say float to string for a double. Now if you play this, it should work. And I will see if I put a number. Let's say I'm going to take 5, divide by 2. I click my divide. I get my 2,5. So when we divide, the only trick is our answer will need to be double. And because answer is double, we need to use a float to string when we're displaying it. Floats are for doubles. And that's your divide button. Alright, so we're adding another button next to our number 1. The caption we change to random, and the name we change to PTN random. So when we went into this, I created a variable ran of type integer, because our random number will be whole numbers for today. We can create fraction random numbers, but that I'll show you next time. So for today, I just want to do this. And yeah, so let's see how this works. So when we want to create a random number, do you agree? We don't need to get any information from the user itself, because I don't need to know. I'm going to just do a random number for you. So I don't need to extract anything. So this input part that we had, like with a subtract button, when we extracted number 1, number 2, we don't need it now because we're actually going to create a number 1 for the user. So we can just go immediately and say ran, then colon equals. So to get a random number, you'll see there's a function. I just started typing RA, and then you'll see there's one called random. So a random will generate a random number for us. So we double click on that one. Alright, so how this works for a random. I'm going to make a comment here. So how a random works, inside your brackets, you're going to say it should be the highest number minus the lowest number plus 1. And on the outside of the brackets, you say plus the lowest number. So that's sort of what we'll always do. So let's say I wanted a random number between 1 and 10. What is the highest number I want? Do you agree it's a 10? Because I want a number between 1 and 10. So the highest number I want is a 10. Then we subtract the lowest number. What's the lowest number I want? It's a 1. Then it's always plus 1. You always just put a plus 1 there. And on the outside, you must plus the lowest number. Lowest number I want is a 1. So I go plus 1 there. And that will actually generate your random number for you. Now the only thing we need to do is we created the random number, but we need to just show it to the user. So in my edit box, number 1, I want to put in the text property, I want to give it a value. And I want to give it ran, my random number. But remember, my ran is an integer, and that thing wants a string. So how do I change my integer into a string? With our int to str, into string. That will change an integer to a string. Okay, let me show you what this piece of code that we've just done now does. See my random button now? Oh, I moved it. But now, so look at my number 1. If I click this, get the number 8. If I just click it a few times, get 8, 4, 3, 1. So the highest number I'll ever get is a 10. The lowest number I'll ever get is a 1. If you click. There's my 10. There's my 1. And I won't get anything more or less than a 1 or a 10. Because this is my highest number I'll get, and this is my lowest number I'll get. And then this is how we display it. Okay, everybody good? Yes. Um, what if you hover over that thread, what does it tell you? Did you put a semicolon there maybe? That's a common mistake to forget that. Um, if you want to, you can select your code and you can copy and paste it into message, or you can just share your screen. Then either one. I can quickly look what happened there. All right, so if all of you understand this, what I want you to do for me is, if I wanted a random number between 5 and 50, type the code for me so I can generate a random number between 5 and 50 and put it there, and then just paste it into the question section so I can see what you've got. So I want to see, so I've showed you how to get 1 to 10. I want you to show me how can I get a random number between 5 and 50. So yes, so my 5 to 50, biggest number we want is 50, smallest number we want is a 5. It's always plus 1, and then on the outside plus the smallest again. That would give me that random number. And now my last one for today is, I want to know if I want a 2-digit number. How will my line look if I want a 2-digit number to be randomed? So yes, yeah, for if you want a 2-digit number, the highest one is 99, the lowest is 10. So you do your random with that, and that's 100%. So if you get like a random other question, just think about what is the biggest number you want and what is the smallest number you want, and then there you've got your range to do this.